All right, thank you for your patience. We already have opened the meeting. We were in another meeting downstairs, and so we're going to jump right into this new meeting. We're going to do recognitions first, and that way we can, for those who have been patiently waiting, we thank you. Let's do the recognitions.
The 2016-17 Browser staff received first place in the Kettle Moraine Press Association's yearbook competition. Congratulations to the editors, Raziel Carmona, Audrey Connolly, Kathleen Mahoney, Olivia Meyer, Mary Padilla, Serena Paleo, and Ellison Prosh.
Introduce a person.
Yeah.
Who do we have here?
Serena.
Okay,
Serena.
You want to shuffle it? Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
And who, what's your name?
Raziel.
Raziel. Oh, you didn't want to come up here at first, huh? Congratulations, good job.
Tell us about your role in the competition, Raziel. What was your role?
Outstanding bulldog.
I'm just a photographer here.
Not just, I am the photographer.
I'm one of the assistants. I do help go to the events, take photos for people if I can, when I can. It's just really, it's a great experience.
Good.
Serena, what's your role, Serena?
I am the writing editor and the movie writing editor. I love, well, originally I had creative writing in freshman year, so I got really interested in the writing prompts, being able to correct grammar. I'm a huge grammar Nazi when it comes to things.
Oh my God, I need
It's
you
like
in
it
my
drives me
life.
nuts sometimes, but I mean, it was a great role. And when Miss Marsh said, well, we have a writing editor position open, I was like, absolutely, I would take it.
Good for you.
Wonderful.
So-
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And then we're going to do athletics. We would like to recognize the following 2017 fall athletes. Football. All academic athletes. Daniel Hillier and Luke Gentile.
Okay. This is, we're going to start the public hearing on the levy and then go into our regular board meeting. So if a parent would like to step out, now's a good time, unless you are staying for the meeting.
Yeah, you guys do well.
That's a subtle hint.
Unless you want to hang out. It's so
All right, quorum being present, the first order of business to hold a public hearing on the 2017 tax levy. Due notice has been given of the public hearing on the 2017 tax levy, and all other statutory requirements preliminary to the holding of such public hearing have been complied with. The proposed tax levy presented at the November board meeting, Mr. Baranek and Dr. Skinkis will present and explain the 2017 levy and answer any questions from the board. Dr. Skinkis.
So we're having, Scott will present the levy here in a minute. While we're having a hearing, the school district is not required to have a public hearing on its levy unless they're planning on levying more than 5% of the previous school year's levy. That has not been our historical practice. We usually levy 4.95 to ensure that we account for any new property or any tax dollars that are now available to the district. However, over the past 7 years, we've still held a hearing just to be transparent to the community and to allow people to provide public comments on the school district's levy. The school district's levy is the public tax dollars that the school district feels it needs for the next school year in order to operate the school district. And so what Mr. Baranek will go through is how we figure out the levy that we're requesting to the county and then what we can anticipate from the county. Remember, the levy the board will submit, or that Scott will submit to the county clerk's office, is no more than a request. But then the laws apply, and the county then makes a determination based on its assessors, assessed to the property values and the tax rates, and exactly what the district will receive. Scott?
Okay. Mary Ann, if you could please go to board book page 7 and pull up the 2017 levy spreadsheet, would be greatly appreciated. Okay, the first step in the entire levy process is to go back to the prior year to determine what was the amount the district requested and to determine the final calculation from the county clerk, the amount of property tax dollars the district is entitled to collect, which is known as the extension amount. If you could look at columns C through F on the levy spreadsheet, this will highlight what our 2016 tax levy year was. The first column is C. That is what the board requested back in December of 2016 for the levy without any loss. Column D is the extension without any loss. Let me explain what the loss is here. I've said it twice now. The loss is the factor that Cook County provides for loss collections for the district. There is a 3% loss factor on the operating funds and a 5% loss factor on the debt service funds. This is built in for anticipating lost tax collections. The final extension with the 3% loss is column E, and column F is just showing the difference between the board levy and the final extension rate with the 3%. The reason that we want to go back to the 2016 is to find the extension amounts. That's the key piece moving forward to projecting what our proposed 2017 tax levy will be. So if we move to the right on our levy worksheet, looking at columns G through column J, so we can see our proposed 2017 tax levy, which will be payable in 2018. The main focus in this particular section on the levy worksheet, I would like to have everyone look at column I, which is the board levy at 4.95%. These are 4.95% increases off of the prior year extension. This is the amount that the district will be requesting for the 2017 tax levy. With this amount of 4.95, this should capture all funds it's entitled to and collect any taxes generated from additional property out there. These amounts will be recommended for approval at tonight's board meeting. Column J takes into account the loss factor. That's just increasing column I by the 3% loss factor for each operating fund. Moving back to column G, this is more what the district can anticipate to collect based upon tax cap limitations. As Dr. Skinka said earlier, we don't have to have a truth in taxation, but it's nice to know that we do have the public hearing so the public can see what we're doing. The district is, held liable to either the increase of 5% from the prior year tax extension or what CPI is. CPI is the Consumer Price Index. The current CPI for the 2017 tax levy to be used is 2.1%. So being tax capped in it, the 2.1% is what the district can anticipate, what a closer amount would be for when the extension is finally done in the spring. So with that being said, if we could look at column G, it shows the levy at tax cap 2.1%. These are the amounts that are anticipated to be for when the extension comes through. Remember, we're asking for 4.95%. That's our request, so that we capture CPI plus any additional new taxes that are available to the district.
Column H.
Column H adds the 3% loss factor to column G for those totals.
Okay, any other columns you'd like to cover or explain?
Yes, I'd like to explain column K and L, just kind of showing the projected dollar amount increases that the district can anticipate from the 2016 extension. Being that we're tax capped, we are going to anticipate getting about $412,315 additional tax dollars coming into the district that we're entitled to, with the board levy at 4.95%. If you notice on that one, we're requesting, and if everything came through with new property, which isn't going to be that, the max would be $972,357. But like I said, we're going to anticipate to get closer to the 412,515. As you move to the right of the levy sheet, going to the last two columns, column M is just showing the percent increase on just the dollar increases per fund. Then in column N, it shows what each fund's total is for our levy, breaking it down percentage-wise.
So basically, the operating funds account for 78%, and debt service accounts for 22%.
22% of our levy, that is correct.
So a taxpayer that's watching this video would say 78% of the taxes I pay the District 208 go to the day-to-day operating funds, and 22% go to pay off the debt that was used for the 2006 referendum, the life safety projects, and the most recent working cash bond.
Yep, that is correct.
Okay.
And then following up the last piece with this is just going over the debt service payment on the levy. As Dr. Skinka says, that's for our outstanding debt payments. We have the 5 total. The county clerk will extend the debt service amount based on the actual payments. The debt payments were verified by the district bond underwriter, Raymond James, to match the amount that is in column I for our debt service payment. What I'm recommending to the board is to adopt the 2017 tax levy, which are the amounts going down column I, BOE levy at 4.95%.
At this point in time, this is when Mr. Gritchen, the board fields any questions from the board, and then if there's citizen comments in regards to the levy hearing.
The meeting will now be open for public discussion, and all persons desiring to be heard will be heard at this time. Let's first go to the board members, and then I'll open up for visitors if the visitors have any comments. So anyone on my left, board members, have any questions?
Nope.
Am I right?
No.
All right, I'm opening it for visitors. Any visitors have any comments on the levy? Seeing none, we'll move on to declaring that the public hearing on the 2017 tax levy be completed, and the regular meeting will now proceed.
Want me to read the
Do we
rest?
have to then go and do a motion to
Yes.
approve the levy now?
The
Right?
levy, we have the motion for the
Do you have a
levy
mo-
under the consent agenda, is how we've done it in the past.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Why do we have it in?
Mary Ann, you have you have a resolution on the action sheet, and you have the resolution on the consent agenda.
It was, whatever wanted to.
Let's do it on the consent agenda.
We do it in the consent.
Yeah, we're doing
Past
it
practice has been
consistently.
consent,
We'll
we
move
did
it
it
to
here.
consent. All right.
That works for me.
So now we have.
Go down to reports.
Student Association.
Student Association, don't see anyone here.
They didn't come twice, though. What's going on?
President's report, I don't have anything to report
Student
on.
Association was here in November.
Only two
Only two.
freshmen came. The freshmen came, not the student association. Who's in charge of student association?
This is a busy time of year, and sometimes when there's only one meeting of the month, they don't typically come.
All right.
Because it's at a different time of the month than
Well,
when
tell
they
them I'm gonna be
normally come.
disappointed if they don't come
I
in
know Max
January
is in
now.
the pool, so one of them is swimming.
The president was running down the stairs when I was going up them, so she said hi to me. There's nothing to report. President's report, we'll go to the superintendent's report.
Curriculum Advisory Council, there's no update. The admin staff has been working with the instructional coaches, the teaching staff. They've come up with some proposals tonight that they're going to discuss with the Board of Education. Some things we're going to try to implement next year in order to help improve our college career readiness. And by that, we mean the number of students that are both meeting both benchmarks in reading and English language, language arts section, and as well as the math section on the SAT. Facilities Advisory Council, there'll be a Facilities Advisory Council meeting after the first of the year to discuss how we're going to address the upcoming life safety projects. The Finance Advisory Council met, I believe it was last week, to review the financial projections. The board will receive 5-year financial projections at the January COW meeting with the assistance of Forecast 5, which is one of the outside consultants we use to help us use their computer program to generate our projections. Personnel Advisory Council, there's no update, and Policy Advisory Council, no update.
Principals report.
December has been a very busy month, as I was just saying. Last week, Shenanigans had their winter improv show, and you can always count on them for a good laugh. The holiday concert assembly was held during the day, and 2 performances were held at night. This week, there was also a chamber orchestra concert on Monday, and today is the winter art show, so hopefully as you were on your way up, you were able to see some of the amazing artwork from our students that are in a first semester art class. Final exams are rapidly approaching next week. They're Tuesday through Thursday. The schedule of exams can be found on the school calendar as well as student handbooks and the RB website. Also, we are in the process of solidifying the final details for our future Bulldog Night, which is an event for incoming freshmen and their parents, which is held on Wednesday, January 17th at 7 p.m. At this event, students in the class of 2022 will receive the results from their placement exam as well as the recommended placements for freshman year. Additionally, parents and students have the opportunity to speak with instructional coaches, many of whom are here tonight that you'll get to hear from in a little bit. They also receive the registration appointment times, which is held on Saturday, January 27th. And then they have an opportunity to learn about extracurricular and athletic programs that are available to them. Students set up tables throughout the building, and students get to rotate and walk through that as well. At this event, we plan to tell parents and the students about the new or modified interventions that we plan to put in place for next year for our incoming freshmen. And so at this time, I'd ask that you take a look at page 16 in the board book. Over the last several weeks, the administration held several meetings with staff members throughout the building to collect feedback on what was currently working with our freshmen interventions, current practices that may need to be tweaked or modified a little bit, and then new practices that we wanted to start for incoming freshmen that come in below PSAT benchmarks. The process consisted of several different meetings. We had brainstorming sessions with any staff members that were interested in attending either after school or during their lunch periods. We met with the reading team and had a planning meeting with them. We had planning meetings with the instructional coaches. Departments reviewed proposed changes. We also reviewed it with Leadership Council, which is all of the instructional coaches together, as well as the building administration. And then the plan that you'll see tonight, we also presented to the staff at a December faculty meeting. So through all of that feedback that we were able to collect and ideas, we came together with a plan that we'll present to you to assist our incoming freshmen who come in below benchmark. So at this time, I'd like to ask Kylie and the instructional coaches to come forward. And as they're coming forward, Marianne, if you could turn to page 17 in the board book. So I'd like, before they begin and I turn the floor over to them, I'd like to stress that we anticipate being able to implement these interventions that you're going to hear about tonight without an increase in FTE. Through restructuring FTE and shifting things around, we don't anticipate an increase in FTE. We do anticipate an increase in the cost of academic support, which is a non-certified staff position. It's traditionally been funded through Title I grant dollars. And through the presentation, you'll hear why we anticipate an increased cost with academic support. So at this point, I would turn the floor over to Kylie Lindquist, Assistant Principal, Curriculum and Instruction.
Hi, everybody. So I'm really excited to present this.
Because we don't see, would you mind introducing yourself? Just so we can
Absolutely.
put
You want me to
names
have
with
them
the
introduce?
faces.
I'll let you guys
Sure.
introduce yourselves.
I'm Wendy Castens. I'm the instructional coach for English and Library.
Thank you.
I'm Erin Cunningham. I'm the instructional coach for social studies. Christy Hughes, instructional coach for science.
Lindsay Mino, instructional coach for math.
Lindsay, Christy, how long have you been at RB?
I think this is my 14th or 15th year. I'd have to go back and count, but
Wendy?
22?
22. And Erin, you're a graduate of RB,
I am,
correct?
yeah,
This
class
is
of
your
06.
fifth year?
Sixth year.
Sixth year. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Sorry, I didn't think of that. So I'm very excited about what has kind of been a collaborative effort with everyone in the building, really looking at how do we address students who are coming in below benchmark. And that's something that we've talked about here before and is kind of our constant quest about how do we support our students who come in below benchmark. So the College and Career Readiness Academy that we would like to start for next year's incoming freshmen would involve any student who comes to RB below benchmarks, SAT benchmarks on their PSAT 8, which they do as their entrance exam in both math and the evidence-based reading and writing, which is the ERW section of that test. Those students will then become a part of this College and Career Readiness Academy. The group of teachers that is going to be associated with that academy will then be teachers that will have a common prep period so that they will be able to work together and problem solve around specific student need, and they will be able to address what's working for some students, what might not be working for other students, and really have a team approach to how they can collaboratively work to pull those students up to benchmark. So within that team approach, each of the departments represented here with me tonight are going to be impacted in some way, and they are going to give you just a small idea, each of them as we go through this, of how their department is impacted and what the course in their department that is in the College and Career Readiness Academy, what support that offers for students that are in that academy. So we can start with Wendy, but before I do that, I want to mention that box that's in your board book. That's what a sample schedule is going to look like for a student that goes into that College and Career Readiness Academy. And so as each of the instructional coaches talks about their sort of department's role in this, you're going to see how that's reflected in what a sample schedule would be for a freshman who comes into that academy.
And we're using the math or their reading score primarily to get into the college and career.
Reading score is 100%, yes.
100%. So if a student's not reading at grade level or at our cutoff score,
They will go into
this academy.
Yes.
And depending on the cutoff score, so we will keep extended reading, which is right now a full period and then a 25-minute. So if it's third hour, they also flow into 4A. If it's fifth hour, they have 4C and fifth hour. So they have more minutes for reading.
They're getting a period and a half.
instruction. But what we brainstormed and used the studies from Read 180 Universal, as well as some of the other schools in the area, that we can, with the students who are close to reaching benchmark, we can use a 50-minute reading period because they're going to pick up their minutes in the other academic areas. And so that frees up their schedule while we're also giving them an intervention, so they have a little more space in their schedule. And then those students, because they don't need those 25 minutes, they are then able to fit more core classes, so we can try and get them even more focused on the college career readiness path. So that's the shift the English department is excited about for reading, because sometimes that block of extended algebra and extended reading will force a student's schedule to, it's not malleable. Now it will offer them a little bit more space, and then we can target what they really need. Whereas before it was a one-size-fits-all, now we have two options for students. So we're very excited.
Christy's going to talk science now.
Okay, so one of the changes that major change that the science department's gonna put in place is the freshmen that are below benchmark are gonna take earth science as freshmen rather than biology. And the reason for that is the vocabulary that's in the biology classes is really difficult, so we're gonna use infused literacy program with earth science to help them with their vocab skills and their reading skills. And we'll have a reading coach in those classes working with the earth science teacher.
And the board, this year is the first year that we've used the Discovery Education Tech Book in science. We proposed that, and the board approved that for us last year, I believe it was. And so Earth Science is one of those early adopters in science of the tech book. So the students that are in the academy will have resources from that tech book, like they have full Spanish resources. They have Lexile levels where a student can go in, change the Lexile on the reading that they're doing. So there's some built-in supports in that course that come just with the actual materials that we've purchased, outside of the fact that they've already been working with the literacy coach in that course. And we think the high level interest of that course with a little bit more workable vocabulary is going to really help those kids and still keep them in a science, which is so important.
Is there a teacher dashboard inside of the tech book to like?
I think there
You mean
is.
for progress monitoring? Is that what you mean? Or there is. It's not to the degree that that some of them are, but they can use Schoology as
Okay.
well. So they can do with Schoology and with the Discovery Tech, they can do a lot of progress monitoring.
Lindsay, you wanna hit yours? Math?
So in math, we'll still offer the extended algebra, so that's a period and a half of algebra. So those are our students that are coming in definitely below benchmark, but they need a little extra support. So we use that extra time for extra practice with Mathia, which is our kind of our technology intervention, or to work on skills. They're, often the teachers of that right now will kind of shuffle kids, that if there's a group of kids that are really getting something, they'll take that group and work beyond, or they'll, really be able to target some of the deficiencies that those students have in that extra time. And our students that are coming in at the lowest scores do take pre-algebra, so that's generally just a handful of students, but so those students would be part of the academy as well.
And because that would be for many students the only extended course, because we don't anticipate many students being in extended reading. Many of the students will take at least a half a period of academic support, which is our small guided study hall, and we will have the same support staff member associated with that academic support, so we plan on infusing more time into academic support strategically for those students in extended algebra, whether it's looking at retaking exams, getting some individual assistance by having a math teacher push in. So we're able to do some more strategic interventions in that half period as well, in addition to the extended algebra.
So then if Erin's going to speak a little bit to the social science, even though when you look at social science there it says none. But Erin is going to touch on some of the supports that we already have in place in that department.
So for social science, there's not really a change exactly in the trajectory these students will take. There's no 9th grade social studies for these guys, but they will take sophomore Western Civ. In sophomore Western Civ, we've been working with our literacy coaches to redevelop our curriculum and really infuse vocabulary instruction so that our students in sophomore Western Civ are able to access the document-based questions that we've been using with our freshmen in Western Civ. So with the help of the literacy coaches, we've really redesigned and reworked our curriculum.
I would say
Some students take Western Civ as freshmen if they're at benchmark. If
Yes.
not,
Indeed,
One
yeah.
of the things we're putting in place is that for giving them some extra supports before they gotta take that reading intensive course as a
Yes,
sophomore.
in order, to access the
Be more
text.
successful.
Mhm.
Right, that's nice.
And I would say some of the best work that I've seen since I've been at RB is the work that has been done with the literacy coaches and the Western Civ, specifically the sophomore Western Civ class. As an English teacher, when I go in to observe and evaluate, I'm watching a reading class, and they're really using reading as their skill focus, and the history really supplements that. So it's a great place for our students who are struggling to matriculate into at their sophomore year. So one of the things that we just want to note is that our intention is to expand this academy as students go through their 4 years at RB. And so as they would go into their sophomore year, they would have one less class that's within the academy. As they would go into their junior year, they would have one less class. So we're kind of pulling back a little bit, that release of responsibility a little bit, so that the students are becoming more and more independent, but that we are still there supporting them as they matriculate on. We're also really excited that we're going to have students in a group together, and we can start talking about things like taking them on college visits and letting them see what they're working toward. And we can arrange field trips and career and college exploration. We can look at trades. We can look at what's going on with Triton, and we can really put a program around these students that suits their needs while we support them academically, and show them what there is out there for them. And we see, as they go further and further up in their career, and some of the classes get pulled away, there will definitely be students that will no longer be a part of the academy because they'll meet benchmarks and they won't need those supports moving forward. But as students need them, the group gets a little bit smaller. That's why you see the classes in the academy start to dwindle a little bit. Lindsay's going to touch on one more piece of this. There will still be some students who will fall below benchmark in math, but may not fall below benchmark in reading. And so when that happens, since reading is really the main driver that pushes a student into the academy, when that happens, we want to be able to have an intervention in place that works for those students. Because not all students who are below benchmark in math need extra time to learn the material. They may just need extra practice. So Lindsay's going to touch a little bit on how we're going to address those students that may not go into the academy.
So these are our students that place in regular algebra. So they are not honors algebra students, but they definitely don't need, as Kylie said, that extra 25 minutes. And so what we're looking to do is have these students have an academic support group that has a more math focus. And kind of looking at, there's a definite routine, there's, working on their executive functioning skills, but every day there is some math infused into what they're doing. So whether that is looking at a particular skill of the week, or, maybe as a group, algebra is struggling with solving equations, and so that is something that they review, or using that as more time to work on Mathia or other resources that they use in class. So kind of having that, not necessarily the full period because they do have other academic classes, but giving them that little extra that's a varied kind of component of their day, as opposed to sitting, okay, you're in math for 75 minutes now. That academic support class might be 7th period and they have math second. And so a lot of those students that are kind of in the middle would benefit greatly from just like a quick refresher of what was done at 9:15 this morning. And so that kind of is the hope, is that will give them another dose, but maybe in a different way than just their traditional math setting, and with a different person than their math teacher.
And the other benefit of the state adopting the SAT series as their state test is that with the PSAT 8 and any of the PSAT assessments, students, after they take it, get an access code, and they can log on to Khan Academy for free, and that practice is tailored to how the students performed on the PSAT and what skills that they're missing. And so we plan to infuse that into academic support as well for those students.
So in a quick summary, and also in a quick summary for the viewer, and this maybe moved a little quick, the Board of Education over the last few years has been really emphasizing to the administration that we need to increase the number of students that are college and career ready. And that's one of the board goals, which says right now it's currently a student will achieve a 21 or better on the ACT. ACT feels that if a student achieves a composite score of 21 or better, that they should be able to get a C in a traditional college course and or be career ready. The benchmarks for SAT are a numerical number, but SAT feels that if a student can get this score and I think it's a 430 in math, or a 530 in math, and a 480 in English, they should be able to get a C in a college course and or be career ready. So what basically the administration has put into place is so that any incoming freshman next year, if they are not on pace for those benchmarks as an incoming freshman and at the reading level, they're going into this academy. And if they're at benchmark in reading but not in math, they're now going to be required to take an academic support. The board of the administration will cover this with parents at the incoming freshman Bulldog Night after the first year, but this is a change in expectation. But this is aligning with what the board wanted to see. So the days of students coming in and we know they're not at benchmark and we allow them just to follow a traditional track and maybe they make it, maybe they don't. Now we've put some things in place that if you're not at benchmark when you come in, you're either in extended algebra or in algebra with academic support. If you're not reading at benchmark, you're going into this academy, so you get these additional interventions. So the team has worked really hard. There's been a lot of teacher input. We had a long discussion about this academic support for all the math students because this is going to be a change in culture for parents that have had other kids go through the district. But the math department, and Lindsay, if I'm wrong, this is something the math department, the teachers feel this is the best intervention we can offer, correct?
Well, and I think the difference of like, you know, a student that doesn't like math or math's not their background, if we tell them like the first 20 minutes that you're in academic support, math is happening today, whether that is we're working on homework or a skill or whatever, then they have no choice but to do it. And, you know, that will make them, you know, their skills grow. If a student doesn't like math and they have an academic support, they're gonna go in there and they're gonna do anything but the math. So by having this, the academic support in there, it gives, you know, a little bit more focus, but in a different setting than in their class with, you know, the rest of their classmates. And just that like daily routine. So I just think it's a little bit of a different setting, but it will get them that little extra piece that they need.
We've shared these interventions with the feeder school superintendents. And for parents listening tonight or in the future, I think the emphasis would be put on them addressing this problem sooner rather than later. So if you want your student to be able to explore multiple electives or not be in one of these two interventions, then they need to be really working on their skills so that they come in at benchmark and on pace to perform.
Open up for questions for the board. I'll go to my left first.
Can I ask, and I don't know if you know numbers yet, but it says you want to keep the class size small. Are you going to cap it at a certain number, or what are you thinking?
Don't ask Wendy that, she'll tell you like 5.
No.
Just kidding.
Just kidding. You know, the ideal for reading, that was part of the reason we thought, how can we hit all the students who we know need reading, but can lower our class sizes? And so by using the 50 minutes rather than the 50 plus 25, we should be able to have 18 to 20 per class, which is what the Universal is designed for. And so students will probably get as much time on task in reading as they do now, it's just the classes are a little bit larger. So at least for reading, that would be the case. I will say the English 9 classes are a good size right now, so I can't imagine that they would be larger or smaller. And just taking a look at the data that Beth shared with us from the placement test, it seems like the numbers are similar to what they are right now. So that's exciting for me because, you know, whenever there's a change, you wonder how it's going to affect students and FTE. And so it seems like it will be similar but different just in terms of numbers. Like there might be 8 English 9 and 5 honors English 9. But for reading, we will have more kids strategically in the intervention because a lot of students try to test out of the extended reading because they want to put a different class in. And so we now don't have to force them into that. Like, we want you to be a better reader so that your senior year you can take as many difficult classes as you want. So I think for English at least, in reading, I think class size will stay small.
So what Wendy was hinting at is currently with our structure, many students take extended reading and extended algebra, and so they don't have room for any elective. And so by making reading not extended for many of the students, that's why you see in the proposed schedule that they now have many of the students will have an opportunity for electives, whereas before they didn't have that opportunity.
John, you?
I'm okay. First, I want to thank you. This is pretty impressive. I mean, like they said, the board's been trying to encourage, not that the administration doesn't want to do it, to see how can we really improve in this area. And you obviously put a lot of time and effort into it. And I'm sure the kids are going to be thrilled they'll have an elective the first year, just something little. They can take an art class or music class or something. So it's But do we have an idea of how many students fit into this group yet for like a year?
Yeah, we would probably, Kristen, be looking between
like
75 and
75 to
100.
80.
Oh, okay, so it's about 30%, 20% of the class or something like
Mhm.
that then, right? Okay. And then the other thing is, are parents usually pretty supportive of it when you explain what we're trying to accomplish, or do you expect, or do you get some pushback?
We'll see come
The pushback
Well,
has
you've had
usually been the elective piece.
Yes.
And so
Okay.
that's why we were trying to be very strategic when we were approaching the academy, because if that's the resistance, let's try to take that away, so that students still have that opportunity while we're still providing them the support.
So any parent that's had a student go through either extended math or extended reading, that's their traditional schedule. The college, the academy piece now is getting those 5 or 6 teachers, all teaching those same kids, getting them all a common prep period. So that's the unique piece of the career academy. It doesn't really impact the schedule.
The concerted effort to make sure that.
There's a support around that kid
Right,
every time,
around those
every
students.
class he goes to.
Oh, okay.
The math piece will be the piece that we'll see how it plays out, because that is going to be something new to where some of those kids that are not at benchmark may have 2 electives, and now they're being told you can only have 1 elective because you're going to be in academic support with a math focus. Which is having a student myself, academic support is supposed to teach them organizational skills, executive functioning. So it's not something that's going to hurt the student. It's just that it's an additional intervention now. So we'll see how that goes over.
And actually,
We did look at current freshmen and how many freshmen had 2 electives, and that number was very small, so we don't anticipate that having a huge impact
Okay.
on electives or on students having to give up an elective the freshman year. Certainly some will, but we don't anticipate that being a huge concern.
and you actually you answered some of the questions I had in my mind, but one is that your hope is, with the focus on this, some of the kids actually will improve and come
Yes.
out of this program
Yes.
and just become a regular program by the
Yep.
time they're at least an upper class.
Yes.
That's
For
very
example,
positive.
now we have, we only have 1 section of sophomore reading right now, where, we see a lot of students who take freshman reading now and then, move out of reading and they go on. But we will have those things in place for the students that continue to need the supports.
And don't you have some kind of summer intervention program for the incoming freshmen still?
We have Bridge to RB.
Does that help
Which
with these
is
students?
executive functioning, and it's kind of exposure to the different kinds of
Oh,
courses
okay.
that the students will
A little bit
take.
different.
We are talking about, since we started talking about College and Career Readiness Academy, we have talked about, Dr. Skinkis and Kristen and I have talked about what does it look like if we were to think about putting an intervention class in the summer.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Once they come through the program
Mhm.
and they do well, and you kick them out because they've done well.
They graduate.
Will you have something sophomore year in case they regress or they start to slip a little back so that you can push them up and keep them up to par?
Yeah, when these students move on, there will be sort of by default some courses that they will be taking sophomore year, that like sophomore Western Civ, and then also biology, 10th grade biology, since we're swapping earth science for biology. So those 2 courses right there, let's say they don't go into sophomore reading, they would still be in sophomore Western Civ and sophomore biology. Both of those programs have worked pretty closely, very closely with our literacy coaches and continue to do so. So those will be automatically built in, even if we see a student who did very, very well, not needing sophomore reading. They're still going to have those supports innately. So
Because
they
they're still
did.
kind of in the academy.
They're
because
still in the
taking
academy a little
classes with
bit.
the other kids.
So we also are able then to continue those supports even though we've seen growth. In fact, the teacher that will be likely teaching our sophomore biology, because she currently teaches the co-taught freshman biology, is a literacy specialist now, because she got her master's degree in reading. So the supports will be there even if a student graduates from the program, so to speak. At that sophomore level, pretty much all of those kids, because they need to take Western Civ, they need to take bio, they're going to have that there with them.
I mean, like in the math piece, we're looking at like, okay, how does this look in geometry then as sophomores? And then as we get into, the junior year, what does that look like? I mean, as the instructional coach for the department, but also an AP teacher, like, I would love to see these students, like, come from starting in reading and ending up in an AP stats or computer science. Like, that's, I think, a very realistic goal for these students. And so, we want to kind of make sure there's the supports in place. So by having the reading, bio, and Western Civ, that helps prepare them, especially for those two classes in our
chemistry as a junior.
Yep.
For physics.
They all have the same counselor then too?
That's something that we would like, yes. We're looking at the feasibility of that and the need for potentially having two. Thinking about the students that will be in this academy will likely be some of our students with highest needs. And also the idea that if we were to maybe go with two, let's say one of them is out sick, or let's say, one of them is at a conference, there would always be someone in the building that they would be able to have access to. So we're still fleshing that out, but we definitely want it to be in the 1 or 2 range, not spread out over all 5.
Yeah, because that I inferred that only because where you were saying like college visits and
Yes.
trade school stuff, that
Yeah.
would be the piece that the counselor would kind of be in charge of, right?
Yes, yeah.
And part of the team approach, it's
Right,
not just,
right,
the core
right.
classes
All the
meeting, it's
supports
everyone
in
coming
place,
around,
right.
We would also like to have one social worker associated with this group, as well as one dean. Dean of students.
Oh, dean.
So that when we all get to the table,
Right.
we only have to pull one of those people in.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you. This is a pretty comprehensive plan. It's nice to see a plan in place that's going to catch kids, like an RTI model, it's going to catch them before they fail. So it's very well thought out.
Have
Thank
you,
you.
have you thought of incorporating transfer students into this model? 'Cause
Yes.
if I remember correctly, some of the lower scores have tend to be transfer students who have come in year 2 or year 3 and okay, great.
Yes, that's definitely our plan. We do have a draft for what sophomore, junior, and senior year looks like, but we didn't want to overwhelm you with too much information tonight, so we held off on that for now, but that is our plan.
Thank you.
Marianne, I
Thank
think,
you.
was there, before they stepped down, was there one other slide for this?
No, that was
You sure?
Do you want me to be part of the financial report?
I thought there was one other slide that said that the board needs to understand that when we implement this, it will be 3 years before we can reap the benefits of this. Because the data won't happen next year, it won't happen the year after that. We will get 3 years of these kids to go through this plan. And so the
We'll
board
have
will.
anecdotal data. but-
I was going to say, you'll have data as you go through that.
They just want
And so I'm using a little sarcasm here, but I wanted to just to show the board, like, we're carrying out what this group worked on this. It was a very collaborative process. The staff, we had lunch meetings and circles of reading teachers, English teachers, math teachers, lunch and learns, after school. But it's going to take a little bit of time. And we're going to need to make sure that as we work through all of our financial issues, that we need to make a commitment to this as a board, that this is something that we don't waver on. Any student that comes in below benchmark in reading or in math will get these interventions and get these supports if we truly want to make every kid college and career ready.
Well, I got to say, I know Kristen's jumped on me a few times about how you guys look at this data and how important it is. And it's way over my head, obviously, but this is something that appears to be it makes sense without knowing what the data and the statistics are. And, giving a freshman an elective could make or break the difference of the poor kids, right? If they can't take one class they really want to take.
And showing them how they can
And show them how, yeah, exactly.
through their skills.
And having
development.
a small group focused on this type of student, there's some expertise there and there's some sharing. It's hard to imagine it can't do better. I mean, okay, we'll not know for 3 years statistically, but it seems like a very logical approach into you got to try it. I mean, and we got to support you on trying it, I guess, is what I mean.
For a couple of years.
Yeah.
It's about building that relationship.
Yes,
and those
that's a
supports,
huge piece,
because
too.
a lot of these kids that are in this situation don't
feel that they are welcome in school, right? Or have had, already
Don't have
had
a
bad
place.
school experiences, right? In the elementary.
Yeah.
And so having that team approach, having that sense of community built between them, between their peers
Yes.
and you as adults, right, is huge.
And the
Like an
consistency,
advisory.
the
Right.
consistency piece with the executive functioning and the different layers that a team of teachers who have one period together, as one of our literacy coaches always said, some of the kids in this academy are the kids who don't do school.
Right.
They're not
Absolutely.
used to, they don't go through the motions that your academics do.
Right.
And so, really being able to wrap your arms around them
And that's another reason for the elective to be so important, because
Yes.
they've learned to compensate in other areas, the arts or whatever it may
Yep.
be, for their lack of academic success. And so to take that away is rough.
right.
The other thing is, if you believe the more connected the kids are with the school, the better going to do the
Yes.
socialization. I blessed my kids were pretty good students, and they still tell me today some of their favorite classes were the electives with kids. Instead of being in the same AP class with kids for 4 years, well, I know you can't do that, but you know what I'm saying.
But they
You
tend to
take an
travel.
elective with some kids that are on your swim team or your
Yep.
track team or something, and those were some of their favorite classes here.
Yeah.
So I think that's a
Absolutely.
very positive thing.
Yeah.
Great job, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kylie,
very much.
why don't you stay up there, we'll do
Is it right
technology.
okay?
Is the board okay with shifting the agenda?
Anybody else want to stay?
And then we have wellness report after, so Scott's got to stick around, so we can
Other
let Scott
friends, come on up.
wait. Let's do technology and wellness and get everybody on the road.
So Mary Ann, if you could go to page 63 in the board book. That is the beginning of our technology report, and we typically have been reporting out to the board on 2 occasions, once in December and once in May, about our one-to-one initiative. So here to do that is Frederick Wilmot, our instructional technology coordinator, and Mike Connors.
I'm going to go over the infrastructure and the finance funding part of the report, and then I'm going to hand it off to Bridget for the instructional technology part. So, under infrastructure, you can see that during this past summer, we upgraded our wireless access controller, and we upgraded our broadband. The wireless access point controller was upgraded because we had run its capacity for the amount of access points that it could handle. So that we had to upgrade it for future expansion if we needed to install any more access points. Our broadband, last year we were running at about 250 megabytes. By the end of the year, we were running at 90% capacity, knowing that we were going to put yet another class with Chromebooks. We did an upgrade, and we went to 500 megabytes. So, for this coming summer, you can see we listed again the upgrade of the broadband. We regularly, every day, we monitor what we use for broadband, and at this point, with the additional devices that we've put on there from this year, we're running at about 80% capacity. So we anticipate that we're going to have to upgrade to 1 gigabyte broadband. Also, you can see listed that we have upgraded the firewall. This will be needed to be upgraded because of the additional speed that we're going to require for the additional devices. Next part is finance and funding. You can see in the top of the chart is where we show what we collected last year, what we budgeted for this year as far as revenue, and what we've collected up to date. Below, we've listed the expenditures that are related to the one-to-one initiative. You can see that the amount has increased. The reasons for that were that we had to buy the wireless access point controller. The teachers were due for upgrades. We had to take into effect the additional transfer students that were coming in. They were going to need Chromebooks, and just the costs associated with the additional Chromebooks, including insurance, licenses, bags, things like that. Is there any questions about the first 2 sections?
Bridget?
So as you can see in the report, a major focus for instructional technology this year is the 4Cs model. So integrating technology for creativity, communication, critical thinking, and collaboration. So following the 4Cs model, our teachers, I am very excited, they continue to find innovative ways to integrate the technology. In the report, I listed that we have over 80 different tech tools that I am aware of that are being used in the building so far this semester, which is wonderful. Everything from virtual discussions to self-paced tutorials to customized search engines. So every teacher, certainly depending on their content area, their students, their experience in teaching in a one-to-one environment, they're all at different levels. But the one thing that remains consistent is that they are willing to try to use new technology in their classrooms, which is very exciting. So I gave a couple of examples. This is from our tech blog. There are many examples that I could have chosen, but we have fine arts teacher Aubrey Prince, who is using video and audio artifacts for assessment, the English 9 team, who is using a web-based program to improve student writing, and then the wellness teacher Val Astro, sorry Val if she's watching, Val Astro, who is using digital storytelling to synthesize research. So with all of this, I think it's really exciting to note that in the fall, we actually were named a Google for Education reference district, and that means, quote, we are held up as a model school for our innovative use of technology to create positive learning outcomes. So just looking towards the future, looking at setting new goals, thinking about once this rollout is done, where do we want to go? And what are the resources that we're going to need to get there?
So, Bridget.
Yep.
We're in our third year.
Yeah.
Right? Halfway through first semester.
Yeah.
And this has been a long journey. Everybody, and a lot of even some of the instructional coaches that stayed, they've been on this journey since we started this. Trying out Chromebooks, trying out learning management systems, correct? Mm-hmm. So what are some things, I think one thing we should have you, I know you present twice a year with Mike. And Mike, the infrastructure and the finance, it's kind of black and white. Sorry, but it's just black and white, right?
Do what I do.
But Bridget, you do it well. You do it well, Mike. Bridget, when you come back in May, why don't you start to put together a plan with the teachers and the resources you use, and with Kylie and the instructional coaches, and start to lay out for the board some things you think. Sure. What are our next steps? Because if you think about this, we're one step away to completing this journey of a 4-year implementation cycle, all of our pilot cycles. It's another great thing that the staff has really led the charge on. I mean, I know at first it felt like we were telling them, hey, we have to figure out a way to get more technology in, but talk about taking the ball and running with it. And you've been leading that charge, so we really appreciate that. But bring the board really liked the video in May, so we want another video.
I got it. Message received.
And the reports to the board in the future, I mean, Mike, the finance and the infrastructure stuff can be rolled into a financial report in January, December, but maybe it's time to start bringing some teachers in front of the board to demonstrate some of the things they're doing. Because you're going to have some teachers now that have been doing this for 4 years, right? It started as freshmen, and maybe we're even on the pilot program.
This is their 4th year.
Yeah.
It's time to start showing the board the benefits of them committing to this and letting the teachers show how the stuff that they're doing. And I think the board would like to see some teachers in front of them talking about how they appreciate the technology and having you as a resource and other resources. So maybe we can even start doing that.
I think that sounds great.
I just had a teacher stop by the other day and was on the way to a tech workshop, and one of the best teachers in our building, in my opinion, and said to me, more than half of the stuff I do with technology for my classes, I would never have even considered if Bridget hadn't found it, learned about it, sent it out and said, this is how it works, this is what it looks like, and just talked about Bridget's willingness if a staff member says, gosh, I really want to try this, but I don't know how, or I don't know what it would look like in my classroom. And being able to go to Bridget and tell her about it, and she figures it out, and she figures it out in a way that then she shares it with people. Every time I go past her office, she's got a teacher in her office with her, and they're planning, they're in their computers. There's no space on her whiteboard to even write a comma if you wanted to. So I just want to, I mean, there's a microphone in front of me, I have to use it. I just want to say that our teachers are incredibly lucky that they have Bridget as a resource, as are our students. And I think it shows in everything we do technology-wise in the classroom, without a doubt. So I wanted to be able to say in public that Bridget, is really, really driving this, and it's working. And our kids are doing amazing, amazing things.
So Bridget, one other thing that we probably got to think about, and that was a very nice compliment, Kylie.
Your boy's gonna ruin it. He's gonna ruin it.
But we have set a trend now. 96 shifted to Chromebooks 2 or 3 years ago.
Yep.
District 94 is going to Chromebooks. District 95 is now implementing Chromebooks. So we're going to have, they're closed on things, but 2 out of the 3 feeders for sure are on Chromebooks, and hopefully the third will shift to Chromebooks. And we're going to need to start, another thing to put in that plan is how are we going to start collaborating with our feeders so that those kids are maybe starting to use some of the apps we're using, or some of the things we're using, because this is going to just continue to grow. And you got a chance to be, to lead the staff here.
And we have, very willing teachers. I just want to say that, looking at the annual tech survey that we do in the spring, I was just kind of looking at growth over time, and this is, just the second year, so I can only compare the 2 years, but it's really interesting that out of the 4 domains, and I talked about this report at the May board meeting, but just as a refresher, there's 4 domains, and one of them is the classroom use of technology, and that is the one that has the biggest area, shows the most growth, which is really exciting. And then if you drill down to grade level, so you look at freshman, sophomore, the freshman tech score is higher on this survey than the sophomore tech score is, which of course makes sense because those teachers have been teaching in that one-to-one environment longer. So I would assume this year that will grow again. Freshman will be highest, sophomore will increase, junior year we'll see a big increase because it'll be their first year as one-to-one. So it's really exciting to see how the teachers have taken this, how they run with it, and I don't feel like actually I'm doing the teachers justice in the reports that I'm doing to show, when you think about it, we have 80 different tech tools that are being used. These are teachers who are motivated, who are willing, who are trying, and who are not just doing the fancy little tech tool, they're actually integrating it into their curriculum and into their classroom routines so that it's an authentic use of technology. And for me, that's the most exciting thing that I've seen.
Exciting stuff. Questions?
I was going to ask about Bright Bites, but you covered it, so excellent.
Very good.
Oh, I have a question. When it's all said and done on campus, how many devices will there be hitting hitting the access, all the access points that you have, like after the rollout's all done?
Well, we'll probably have about close to 2,000, and that's just the wireless. That's just the Chromebooks. That doesn't include desktops and stuff like that.
Well, is the office hardwired, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
The students' phones all have the Wi-Fi too?
Yes.
So you mean 4,000?
Yeah, we get at least.
This LTE
I
when
think
it's here.
I've looked at it. At least 1,200 devices are connected to the public Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Good job, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Brendan, you want to come up? Table's been set. There's 2 good reports now. You're the third.
I'm not staying for this one, Brendan.
Kylie, you gotta stay. Come on.
Go do wellness.
So moving on to more exciting stuff, we have our Wellness Committee report. This is something that we report out to the board on an annual basis to be in compliance with Board Policy 6:50. So I'll turn it over to Brendan Curtin, our instructional coach for wellness, who also oversees the Wellness Committee.
Thank you, Kristen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you tonight some of the updates within our Wellness Committee. Before we jump into some of the recent updates, I just want to kind of get you up to speed. We initiated a staff-based fitness competition last winter with our faculty and staff. It was called the Fit in 50. Basically, it's a fitness challenge that lasted 50 days. We comprised groups or teams, if you will, by departments, and those teams would gain points by logging miles, by biking, running, elliptical machines, stairs, things of that nature. It was well received. I'm proud to say that we had 94 teachers and staff involved in this event, a tremendous jump from what we've done in the past. Sad to say that the Student Services Department edged out the World Language Department for the first Fit in 50 championship. The wellness staff finished in the top half, but not where we wanted to finish. As far as developments within 2017-2018, we offered the district offered wellness screenings to all faculty and staff on October 12th. We had 68 staff and faculty members participate in the wellness screenings. That was a one-person increase from last year. In terms of the wellness department, one of our new class offerings was the group fitness class. This is a class where students follow well-rounded fitness regime, which allows them the opportunity to improve in all their health-related fitness components. Each day within this course, it offers a different fitness format, which includes things such as CrossFit, recovery workouts, fitness trends, some of our wellness center class workouts. Each fitness format is a large variety of workouts with a large variety of fitness equipment. The atmosphere or climate of this class is very much like one that you might find in a fitness club. This new class has been well received by many of our students that have been enrolled in this first semester class. All classes continue to use our Polar, GoFit heart rate monitors, and our freshman classes are obviously utilizing their Chromebooks. Our senior class obviously is the last class without Chromebooks, so some of our personal fitness classes, some of our team sport classes are a little bit more challenged in terms of encompassing that overall technology. We still incorporate technology in the class, but there's still some students without those Chromebooks, which obviously will change next year. Switching gears to touch base on Quest Food Management Services. Quest shares nutrition information via the school website. They intend to assemble a food committee in the month of January where they'll participate in a food tasting and kind of reflect and give feedback on what some of the more popular items are that they want to roll out in the spring semester. Quest continues to offer many healthy choices for students and staff in the cafeteria, and they continuously expand their healthy options. Their initiative or their focus point for this semester is hanging their hat on everything is fresh, and when they shared that information with me, I said, well, could you build on that a little bit more? And what was shared with me was all the items that they're making in the cafeteria, also known as the Bulldog Inn, whether it's pizza, salad bars, chicken tenders, things of that nature, it's all being made on campus day of, where in the past they might be cooking something from frozen, right? I know they cooked the burgers from frozen in the past. Now everything's hand-packed, so they're placing more of an emphasis on creating a fresh menu for our students. Within the Wellness Committee, some of the things that we continue to promote, the LaGrange Park, Greater LaGrange YMCA student membership for $20 a month through flyers around the school, social media. Recently promoted the Greater LaGrange YMCA Reindeer Run, which took place at the Brookfield Zoo. We probably had close to 40 of our student athletes participating in a volunteer role in that regard. We had a handful of students that ran the race. We had one member of our boys cross-country team that finished third, so I thought that was pretty impressive given the conditions this past Saturday. We also continue to promote the Free Tuesdays in the month of November within the YMCA. We're also promoting Loyola University's Center for Fitness School Employee Membership Enrollment Special Offering. And again, we plan to run the Fit in 50 competition the second semester as well. Like I said, it was well received. Many of these promotions are consistent with some of the things we did last year. Many of the reports and feedback that we've received indicate that all these events and experiences have been well received by our faculty, staff, and students, and all our stakeholders. In terms of developing our wellness committee, obviously you can see there's a handful of different student members that come from a different background. We attempt to reach out to as many students as possible through announcements and marketing around campus, but at the end of the day, most students are going to gravitate towards the instructors that they might have for class or they may feel most comfortable with. That concludes my end of the report. Are there any questions?
I think you answered the questions that were submitted, correct, in your report?
To my left? Anyone? All right.
I just had the one, I'm sorry.
No,
Is there-
go ahead, Laura.
The Loyola program, is that also for students?
It's not 18 years and older.
Okay, so seniors possibly, right?
Correct.
Yeah, you can only go to Loyola, if your parent is a member there, you can go on the weekends or holidays.
But not with this program?
Not with that program.
Correct.
Just, that's their regular gig. In the cafeteria, I know you said they have nutrition information on the website. They don't have calories listed next to the menu item, do they?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, I would love that. I think it changes the way you order food when you see that staring you in the face. You
Sure.
see that more and more, right, on almost every menu now, and almost fast food places that you go to, they have the calories listed right there. I think kids make better choices when they have that right in front of them. I know they all have phones, but they're lazy.
Right, no question. There's no guarantee that they're going to look it up.
Right.
But I can certainly bring
So
that.
if
Could certainly bring that
Quest
to
is
their
looking
attention.
for
They may have it
another
posted. I don't know if there's a
suggestion.
menu, Brendan, that's necessarily above each station, just because we don't have stuff hanging from the ceilings with the sprinkler system and some of that. But I think there might be
But
some
is it there?
menus hanging in places maybe where kids, it's not there where you stand in
Or-
line and
right,
see it, but
right.
there's places in the cafeteria where I think
And
it's
they have the
available.
calorie counts on there?
I could check on that, I'm
Yeah.
not sure. But I know there's a menu up of what's included and what's low fat and stuff like that.
Any other questions?
It doesn't help me on Thursdays because I still have wings every Thursday. Thanks, Brendan.
Sir Fred.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Very. All right, now we go back to the Chief Financial Officer's report.
I'm going overwise.
Look for the
You
calories.
deserve it. You stayed late. You deserve it.
Well, Scott, there's been a couple good reports. Now, you ready to rock and roll on yours?
Absolutely.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay, I would like to highlight the November 2017 financials. The financial reports for the month ending November 30th. This represents 5 months or 42% of our fiscal year. The first report that you will see is the monthly revenue and expenditure report. The key piece on that one, you will see that the bond refinancing is on there and the addition of the new life safety bond and the working cash bond. The following report after the monthly expenditure report is the monthly financial statements. We're tracking pretty close to exactly where we were during our 16-17 budget, which is a good thing. We're continuing to monitor revenue and expenditures coming in and make sure that we're trying to stay on budget as close as possible, lower that deficit gap that we have. Following the financial statements is the revenue expense report from 11/1 through 11/30, highlighting everything that came in for that month and also what is year to date. After the revenue expense report is the student activity summaries report. There is only 2 accounts in the negative out of all of the accounts. We are tracking to make sure that people are fundraising, raising as much money as they can to get their accounts where they're not negative and get them back into the positives. We will continue to monitor the 2 accounts that are negative and see what we can do to help them out to get them back to positive. That would conclude my report. I'd like to go into the questions that were submitted. If Marianne, if you could please go to board book page 24. Okay, the first question submitted was on the revenue for the education levy, which is at the top of the page for prior year. This is FY17 tax collection that came in after June 30th. I'm still anticipating the annual collection to average 98 to 100% of budget. Although the auditor accrues these to the last year's audit, the treasurer operates on a cash basis. So on a cash basis, this should help close the budget deficit gap that we have.
Well, that's the question. Do we, if it's mostly a carryover from what we anticipated being collected during the prior fiscal year, which we were over budget that year too, so the
Yes.
carryover for the year before might have been, but according to this, and they're almost all 107, we're $570,000 over budget. We don't expect a shift in the second collection down because of this, right?
That's another
If it's
timing-
basically based on a carryover from the prior year.
Prior year, yes.
We don't expect it to have a significant impact on the second collection, right?
I do not.
What was our deficit for the year then? Do you remember roughly?
It was roughly 93 or 90, oh, I'm talking the total, about 340.
So just this one account, it's going to cover the deficit plus $230,000. I mean, again, you can't say everything else is going to fall into place, but since it's our biggest item,
Yes.
in all likelihood, that one single item is going to overcome the deficit that we had budgeted for this year, right?
Correct.
Correct.
The issue that you talked about at the previous meeting is how do we budget for that? And I thought about that a little bit. The only thing is the 4 or 5% that we received after June 30th. So we really only collected in that previous year's cash budget or a budget the board approved. We approved it at 98.5.
Right.
We really only collected like 93.
Well, I think the answer.
So we got it late.
But I think the answer is, before we approve the budget, we know how much cash we've collected from the prior, what we thought was prior that came in this year, and we should probably adjust the budget number for that. Because we budget for our tax collections only based on what the projection is for those two collections that come into that current fiscal year. But before we approve the budget, we've collected all the money from carryover from the prior year into this year. We approved it in October, right?
Yeah.
So it has to be approved before September 30th.
All right, September 30th. By September 30th,
We knew.
in July, August, we're 3 months in. We've collected it all, but we don't adjust the then current year budget. And it could be up or down, but the last few years it would have been up significantly for what we know, how much more we collected from the prior year that already in this year. I think that's how we're going to hit it the right way and come much closer on a budgeting plan for that current year.
So the only thing that's weird about that, and I'll defer to the financial guys on the board, is that you are correct. We know that money, so that's cash on hand.
Right.
And the treasurer's office treats us like cash on hand. But technically, the auditor takes that and post-dates it back to the previous year. But I know it's cash on hand.
we do a budget on a cash basis, not on a
Right,
accrual.
budget on a cash basis.
But then
So that's-
Gary's-
The theory is you wind up double budgeting,
Yeah.
right? You're budgeting in the prior year, you're
Prior
budgeting
year.
in the second, in the
That's what I'm
subsequent
saying. I
year.
don't know if you can do that.
So, you can do it,
Or do we start
the re-
putting our tax, instead of 98.5%, do we budget it at 100%?
Or what Gary's
101.
pointing out is, because he's right, then really I said the wrong thing, because if that was really true and it was the same every year, some of the, like this current year, money is not going to be collected till next year, right?
Correct.
But that's not what we've seen, on an overall basis, we've seen higher collections in a given year than what we budgeted several years in a row now.
Yeah, we used to budget at 97. We're coming in closer to 99. So
Right.
that's almost, if you think about it, 400,000, additional 400,000 in tax collection.
Well, I think we should really take a closer look
Look
at
at
it
it.
when we do the budget for next year.
And what I would encourage you to do is to add a fourth line as an education levy and show that remittance as strictly the carryover type of line item as opposed to putting it into the prior line item.
That's a good idea, I think, because that answers the
Because
question.
when it also will help you when you budget the following year to make sure that you don't inadvertently
So you'd have education levy current, education levy prior.
which is that you're doing that 2 year thing, you know.
Maybe
the year
can we change it to first, second, and then?
And then have like 10-1-1-1-4 education levy, and that would be any monies that got carried, you know, that was a timing issue, whatever you want to call it.
Late collection or
Late collection, which fell from the previous year.
Yeah, that might be a way to do it, Scott.
I never understood.
Because then you could technically keep the one at current at 98, I mean, right? You could.
That way, it's clearer to the board to see what we actually budgeted, what we collected off of that budgeted line item. And, because each year it gets buried, right?
Right.
We wind up saying, oh yeah, we collected 99%, but we actually had monies from the prior year
Right.
into that number. This way you can clearly see
What it is.
that carryover amount, and it'll help
And like you said,
decisions with the board, and it also will help you from a budgeting standpoint.
in theory, in most years, we're not going to collect.
Because
all.
then you'll know what percent we've collected year to date to know what you're gonna, if you want to carry over an additional amount into next year's budget. Here, right now, we're kind of blinded, we're saying we've got 170%.
Well, you have a chart already that tabulates the tax collection for the current year. So if you kept that continuous at the 98 or whatever you actually received July 1 to June 30, and then you could look at the 3-year historical trend of this late number, because you should be able to go back on the treasurer's financial reports
Yes.
and say, hey, we've averaged 200,000 or 300,000 after July 1. So it's
Just give it some thought, because rightfully so for some board members to get concerned about deficit spending. And if you're going to be doing projections that might show that we're going to deficit spend, it's kind of important that we're 2 years in a row we're showing deficit spending. As we said, I don't think that's going to happen. So it's whatever we can do to figure out what's the best way to show this, so that because at some point we probably will get it to where we're going to have the deficit spend if we're going to maintain what we're talking about here without doing a tax increase, so without doing a referendum.
No, absolutely. We want to make it as accurate as possible
Yeah.
to reflect exactly what truly we have with what our revenue is versus our expenditures, to see,
Right.
okay, are we truly deficit spending, or are we, more closer to a balanced budget? Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Scott, if you go to board book page, I just want to make sure we're accounting for the life safety accurately. Your revenue and expenditure report, your summary,
Yes.
the 5 months, page 121 of board book. The life safety, you have 1,900, that's the new bond money.
1.9 of revenues.
Yes.
And
then
we
the three
expended
million.
1,931.
And then the 3 million.
Stay on
is
the
a
life
working
safety.
Oh, okay.
We expended 1,931,
Yes.
and that was for roof and this summer projects this year.
Yes, that's roof and whatever is part of the life safety for phase 3.
Okay.
So we still have roughly 475,000 of life safety from the old.
We still have, how many payments? We still have one more, we have 5% on some of the projects we haven't paid out. We haven't paid out our last installment on roofs.
And we still have some architect fees.
Yeah, so
that
we're not
are
done yet. We're not closed out
linked
yet.
to the roof project.
Okay, and you're doing that construction summary for the board in January?
Yes, that will be for the board in January.
All right. Thank you.
And if the roof punch list isn't complete, which I don't anticipate it being, with the weather now,
No, I don't see
we're
that
not
either.
paying that 5%.
So how much should we go in, okay, it's up in working cash is where the 3 million is.
Yes.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
What were the other questions, Scott?
On board book page 37, under, let's see. It's under the Let's see, where's it at here? I'm sorry.
Stipends?
No, it's under the supply account under 10-1441 4610, a CTE supply account on the top of the page.
What's CTE?
Career and Technical Education.
Thank you.
These are Perkins funds, which is the federal grant, or the CTI state grant. Placeholders were entered in the budget. However, the CTE grant allotments were received after the budget was approved with what final line items will be. Moving forward with this, I'm going to take a 3-year historical trend to try to capture a more accurate placeholder for it, so it doesn't look as skewed when you look at, okay, wow, we budgeted this for supplies and it's way over.
But because we're getting funded by the government, it's got to be used for that.
Yes.
You're spending on that, even though.
And remember, the CTE, Perkins grant, and CTI are all based on a reimbursement. So whatever you're spending on it, we put in for reimbursement and we get it back.
Next one.
Page 37, under 10, 1500, 1220, 13, 2215. This is stipend for boys soccer. This was a budget oversight. 4 positions were approved in the contract, and the budget only captures 3.
Thank you.
Low, three assistants, 1 head. Increased the level.
Thank you.
And there were no further questions on the financial reports.
Thank you, Scott. What's the do next?
Is that it? Scott? Okay, then let's move down to discussion and information items. FOIA requests?
No FOIA request. The police department radios, no updates on that.
Okay, this is an opportunity for visitor statements. Are there any visitor statements out there? Not seeing it. Not seeing any. I will pass on the narrative. Any additional discussion items? Look to my left. Any board members want to have any discussion? Look to my right. None?
Nope.
All right. Now we have the consent agenda action items. Approval of minutes. Adoption of the tax levy.
Resolved, the Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby takes the following action on the listed consent agenda items. Approves minutes from the meetings held on November 14th, December 4th, open and close, as presented and amended, and adopts the 2017 tax levy as presented in the December 12, 2017 Board Agenda Packet.
Second.
Is that correct, the way I read it, Marion? We amended the minutes, but we didn't amend the tax levy, did we?
No.
Okay. And there, because there was a couple minor amendments to the minutes, right, Marion? Okay.
John Keane.
John Keane, second. That, all right. We get a roll call.
Ms. Sierra?
Yes.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Gritch?
Yes. All right, let's go on to new business.
Old business, no, there's no.
Oh, old business, excuse me.
No
Old
report
business.
out on life safety capital improvements items. We're still finalizing. The punch lists have been closed. Now we're doing architect walkthroughs and second punch list walks,
All right.
weather permitting.
New business. Payment of bills.
Scott, you received some
Scott?
questions on these?
Yes, there were a few questions submitted. Board book page 95 for My Life Home Healthcare. This is nursing services provided to specific special education students. This is a pay-as-needed nursing service based on student attendance.
Next.
Page 104 in board book for account fee recovery. This is the collection agency vendor fee for them to collect on delinquent fees from about 200 families. Board book page 110. The
Is that,
Brookfield
excuse
Zoo-
me, is that on a contingency basis?
It's based on.
So what you actually collect, you take a fee off the collections, or is it you pay them up front and then they?
We pay them up front, and then we get it's a portion of what we get from the collection. For example, I send out the 200 of them to the families. I'm hoping to get as much as I can collected on the delinquent fees, and they take a cut of it.
Well, if you send it
So if you
out-
got zero.
They send it out for us.
Yeah, but if you
So
got
there's
zero.
an initial fee for every
For
account.
every account that you would send out.
Right, a flat fee.
Flat fee.
And then there's a percentage by how much we want to have them go after the families.
So what if they collect $0? We pay them $2,700.
We
Get nothing?
Our collection is, with it is roughly 40% we get from when we send it out.
So we try to collect it
Try to
more on our
collect it.
own before we send it
Yeah.
to this group.
There's at least 3, 4, or 5 attempts that go out with emails, phone messages, before we go to collection.
Yeah, but, I'll tell you, on a corporate basis, collections are usually on a contingency basis,
100%
period.
contingent.
It's 100% contingent. They don't collect, they don't get paid.
Okay.
And again, maybe these are the only ones that do it for schools, but you might want to consider that.
And how can we have not fees being paid if I thought we hold over the diploma over their head?
You can't hold a diploma.
You can't.
The only thing you can hold is, one thing we've tried to do, and we've had received some payments for it, is when they try to get an official transcript, we only give a copy of a transcript. And sometimes when a student needs that for transferring or enroll in college, then we'll try to negotiate a payment plan, which I've done over the last couple of years, and we're able to collect outstanding fees.
Okay.
But you cannot withhold a student's graduation tickets, you cannot withhold a student's diploma. Prom, we've still been able to do. We withhold, we don't allow them to buy their prom tickets till their fees are cleared up. We don't allow them to buy a year, but we let them, we do some of those things. But the state's kind of started to rule against school districts withholding student privileges because of parents making poor decisions. So sometimes when this gets appealed, we have to deal with that vote.
And then the last question was on board book page 110, Brookfield Zoo, parking spaces in the south zoo lot. The zoo allows the school to use a portion of the south lot from October 1st to March 31st for additional student parking. Student fees are collected to cover the expense.
So what they charge is $50 a space?
Yes.
I suppose I knew that. That's aside from the teacher lot.
Yeah, that's been going on
Okay.
for a couple. It's when they're slow, see, after Halloween and then until
Right.
they start picking back up.
Thank you.
Those were all the questions submitted.
Okay, disposal of surplus personal property.
Do we need to approve the payment of the bills?
I suppose.
We want to go through all those, or?
I think we had a motion, but I think we gotta have the vote.
No, we didn't have a motion.
We didn't even have a motion.
We haven't had a
Resolved, the Board of
motion yet, so
Education,
it's
Township
approved,
High
yeah.
School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the payment of bills as presented and listed in December 12, 2017 Board Agenda Packet.
Second.
Mrs. Towner?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Sierra?
Yes.
Mr. Goodchick?
Yes. All right, now on to the disposal of surplus personal property.
So attached is the list of surplus audio and visual computer equipment. Every year in December, we've created a practice to where the board approves the disposal of capital items or non-capital items. These are computers that are well out of date and that we've used all of their parts for repairs, etc. And so there's really no purpose left.
Whereas the superintendent has recommended the Board of Education determine that certain surplus personal property listed on the attached Exhibit 1, surplus personal property belonging to the district is no longer needed for school purposes and should be sold, and whereas the Board of Education determined that the sale of the surplus personal property in accordance with Section 10-22.8 105 ILCS 5/10-22.8 at a public or private sale is in the best interest of the district. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education, Riverside Brookfield High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois as follows. Section 1, the superintendent is hereby authorized to dispose of the surplus personal property by public or private sale in a manner which is in the best interest of the district. Section 2, in the event that any such property remains unsold, the superintendent may dispose of it in a manner which is in the best interest of the district. Section 3, the superintendent shall report to the board the item sold, the buyer, and amount received for each item.
Did I get a,
Second.
I have a question regarding this motion. With regards to these particular desktops, are any of these administrative desktops, and then do we have to put in motion that they've been properly cleaned with data? So that there's no, I don't know if there's any student record information on any of these, depending on where they sourced. Where these
Just make sure.
You've asked, I think we've asked that before, Gary, but it's a good point.
Maybe put it in the motion
To the
now.
extent, section 4, to the extent any of the computers, every computer that's disposed of in any manner has to be cleaned in a manner that nobody could access the data that was on it.
All right, and who seconded it?
I did.
You still agree with that
Still
second?
hold,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right, after that modification to the, okay.
I have a different question. Why are the exhibit, all the items crossed out? I didn't understand that.
Not sure, Mary Ann, do we have a reason why? Or is that just by accident, maybe a typo?
What?
The exhibit, all the items listed under IT and AP
Page
have a line through
117.
them.
No, it was like that for the last 3 years, so I just kept the same.
Because we're getting rid of
We
them.
probably have the
Tracking with it,
same.
so I just didn't know, like, I figured, okay,
Because we're
wipe
getting
them
rid of
out, so I put the cross through it.
Okay.
They'd be gone, if they're not worth anything for disposal.
That's the question every year.
So I did that, I put the strike through.
All right, go for the vote.
Yes.
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 The only other, not on the vote, but
I'm sorry. And Mrs., yes, I'm a yes.
Section 3, I think I ask this every year too, since you make us read this. You're supposed to report to us on what you received and everything. Do we do that?
We never sold any. We haven't sold any, correct, Scott?
All these times we keep passing these resolutions and then get.
It's the formal one from the attorney,
You get them recycled?
so
Do you recycle them if you don't sell them?
I think we just destroy them.
Dispose of.
We tried a few years back, the schools were asking about selling, going to the private schools and asking, these things are so.
Nobody wanted them.
Yeah.
No, right.
But you properly dispose of them, you don't put
Correct,
them
we
in the
properly,
garbage can.
right.
Properly.
That's what
Properly
I'm
dispose.
thinking.
Yeah, like.
I'm
Yeah,
sure.
so we
throw them in a
places-
recycling
We throw them in all our
company.
acid batteries, we just throw them in the dumpster.
There's places that will, like Easter seals and stuff, that will take that stuff off your hands. And you can maybe get a tax write-off, too,
We
in
don't-
the
we don't
process.
have-
We don't get
Yeah.
tax write-offs.
Well, whatever, credits, I don't know.
Let's move on to school calendar, 2018-2019 school calendar and designated district holidays. It's the first read.
This is the first read for the Board of Education. Annually meet with the feeder superintendents. We work to align our winter break and our spring break. We obviously start a week earlier than our feeder schools, but the breaks do align. We also usually keep one institute day for vertical articulation. All of our holidays, there's 1 or 2 holidays that don't match up, just because I still believe one of our feeder schools is used as an election post. I believe that's in Brookfield, so they use one of their institutes on that day, so there's no students in attendance during the election or during the voting. So plenty of time. The board will not need to approve this until January. The 15 holidays listed below, the contract requires 15 holidays for the non-paid, or excuse me, for the 12-month union employees. So we basically use these 15 holidays for the 12-month district employees and for our district calendar, so the public knows when the district office is closed. So the one change, we do not use, it's not a change. Our past practice is we do an in-school service for Veterans Day. The state allows that waiver as long as you do some type of educational acknowledgement of the event that's supposed to be off. So we do Veterans Day, we have the Veterans Day Assembly, and then we use that day off for the Wednesday of Thanksgiving. And then we, Pulaski Day, we use that. We have an educational on that day, and we use that one, I believe, on March 29th, which is the Friday of spring break.
Okay, there's a request for approval on activity count for Fretted Friends.
There was a question submitted by Mr. Smithing, who's not in attendance. Scott, what's Fretted Friends?
It's a guitar club. So it's new. They'll be doing some fundraisers. We're just trying to add the activity account so that they can kind of fund their program through the activity account.
All right, does somebody want to read the board
Resolved, the
prepared
Board of
to
Education, Township
vote on?
High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the activity account for Fretted Friends as presented in December 12, 2017 board agenda packet.
Get a second?
Second.
Mrs. Ruska?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Bueller?
Yes.
Ms. Cowan?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Chen?
Yes. All right, let's go on to approval of the yearbook contract, first read.
This is a first read. Scott gave a pretty good detail on the cost and background. So since it's a first read, what we did is we submitted the first read for the board to receive board member questions, and then we worked through the board members' questions with our legal counsel so that we don't call our attorney twice.
Good thinking.
So the board, we would like to approve this in January. This is not something necessarily that has to go out to bid. It is covered by student fees. And there is a limited amount of people that do provide this service, as you can see from Scott's background. So
We're happy with what they've done.
we're very happy with what they've done. Scott and I both walked up and met with the yearbook sponsor who thought we could just maybe approve this. I said, no, there's a process that we need to go through. So, but they're very happy. The other primary provider who used to do the yearbook, we had some issues with. And then, as you can see, there was one other provider, but they're more of a grammar school, junior high focus, and doesn't go as in-depth as what we do in our yearbooks. So we'll get answers to the questions submitted from Mr. Walsh and have Scott present those at the January board meeting and get the other things cleared up with the vendor so that we could hopefully have board action in January. Scott, am I missing anything on there that you wanted to cover?
No, I have a call with them tomorrow morning to go over the questions that were submitted.
Okay.
All right, matters for closed sessions. We still have all these personnel and student discipline, purchase or lease of real property, probable imminent pending litigation, collective negotiations, school safety, confidential of closed session minutes.
We do.
All right. Before we vote to go into close, there's an opportunity for visitors, second opportunity for visitor statement. Anyone out there like to make a statement? I'll have to read this then. Hold on a moment. The Board of Education welcomes and encourages participation of its citizens in the business school district. There are 2 points in the meeting where visitor statements are scheduled. Citizens are welcome to raise questions, make comments at either one. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per individual and cannot be combined. Please note the Board of Education will not answer questions or engage in dialogue during visitors' comment. If a person would like additional time to address the board, such a request should be submitted in writing 48 hours before the meeting to the superintendent. In addition, the Board of Education is interested in receiving suggestions and concerns from members of the community. Any individual may make a suggestion or express a concern at the district or the school office. All suggestions and or concerns will be referred to the appropriate level staff member or district administrator who is most able to respond in a timely manner. Each concern or suggestion shall be considered on its merits. An individual who is not satisfied after following the channels of authority may file grievance under Board Policy 2:260 Uniform Grievance Procedure. Neither this policy nor the Uniform Grievance Procedure creates an independent right to adhering before the board. For more details, refer to Board Policy 2:230 Public Participation at Board of Education Meetings and Petitions to the Board, and Board Policy 8:110 Public Suggestions and Concerns.
Okay, so my name is Bridget, and do I have to give an address or just?
Just your village,
Bridget
town.
Here in Brookfield.
Okay.
And I wasn't going to make any comment, but after I missed the last board meeting and saw the Landmark article about the discussion about Tolerance Week. And one of the quotes that says that we're not pushing any ideology at the school. However, I also noticed that there was a Generation for Life speaker coming talking about pro-life. And I think that's an ideology that's being pushed at the school. So just to keep that in mind, if people are upset about tolerance, there are also people that are in this community and in the school district that might not like the pro-choice issue pushed at the school as well. So just to keep that in mind. I'm just bringing that up for a lot of people that asked me to speak to you guys. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you very much. All right, do we have any,
That's it.
no discussion items were brought up? Any considerations of items for future meetings? To my left?
Nope.
To my right? All right, can we get a resolution to move into closed?
Resolved, the Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, enters closed session for the purpose of considering appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, student discipline, purchase or lease of real property, probable imminent or pending litigation, collective negotiations, school safety, and confidentiality of closed session minutes.
Could we get a second out there?
Second.
All right, can we get a, all in favor? We're gonna do a roll? Okay. Roll.
Yes. Yeah.
Ms. Sierra? Yes. Mrs. Towner?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Ruska?
Yes.
Yes.